This is a Pareto chart, and it looks pretty simple and it's actually pretty easy to pull off. But one of the really cool things about it is that if you actually wanted to make a Pareto chart like this for any other measure, you can actually do it very, very quickly. So right now I have night spent as the value that I'm using. Let's say I want to change that to the number of visits. All I would need to do in this circumstance is to just remove my value measure and replace the number of visits with the title value. And now I have something where basically the entire Pareto chart works for this specific measure. This seems really, really great, but a lot of people aren't actually using this feature, and it's all possible because of visual calculations. Let's take it one step further. Right now, so we just switched the measure, but did you know that you could also switch just the column and it works perfectly with literally no additional steps? It's really nice, and I really recommend you start using something like this because you can, it's like attach hierarchies and do really cool things like create, even small multiples of different Pareto charts so that you can actually see what's going on. So let me show you how to do this. It'll be really quick because it's actually very easy to do. The first thing that you actually have to do is if you click on this wheel button right at the very corner of your Power BI desktop, you'll see that you go into your options, and in your preview settings, there is going to be something that you need to turn on. There's this little button right here, visual calculations, and you're probably going to need a version of Power BI that's at least just a couple of months old. It's really recommended to have the very latest one if possible. Nevertheless, this is kind of what I'm using here. So visual calculations, turn that on, and you might need to restart your Power BI desktop if you've never used it before. All that you need to do to make all of this is to basically just first create one specific table. So let's just duplicate this page. We're going to, it's like hide this table just a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and just bring in a brand new table. Well, it's going to be a matrix, but it doesn't really matter. And let me just format this in this way so that it's basically the same. I'm going to put in, let's take UK region, and we're going to put in night spent as the value. So this is kind of what the table looks like. Not super, it's like impressive. It's just a table has one specific item. And what we're going to do is we're going to start building the actual, it's like visual calculations. In order to get started, you got to click on these more options from the ellipsis when you're actually selecting the visual. So click on the more options and click on new visual calculation. You're going to be able to create all of these different items, but just start with custom. And I think that's, it's like basically what you want to be doing. You'll end up on a page like this, and you'll know that you have your visual calculations set up because there'll be this little icon here that looks like the Power BI, it's like icon with a little FX on it. And that is the icon for visual calculations. As long as you see this, that basically means that we can make anything that we want. I'd also advise you to replace the name of, it's like your measure into just something like value, something that can be referenced very easily. And this is where the power of the actual visual calculations start coming in. What visual calculations actually does is that if you're calculating something inside of the visual, that value can be used and reused as many times as you like inside of the visual calculation. It means that it cuts down on the number of queries that is, it's like running for a specific visual. It can do that like a lot, actually be incredibly efficient. So if you have a value that's being calculated and you want to, for example, show the actual value, the rank the value is, the percent of the grand total, the cumulative value percentage, all things that you would need in a Pareto analysis to see which items make up the top 80% of, it's like whatever specific value you're looking at. That would mean looking at the value in multiple different, calculations. But with visual calculations, you can basically just look at the value once, bring that value in once, and then use the table that's being created in order to, figure out all of the other things that you need. So let's do the first one. Okay, just going to go back to our new visual calculations. And the first one is going to be the most simple one. And maybe I will move my head over here for this video so that you can actually see the, it's like this box here. This box is basically where a lot of the visual calculations are going to be made. And we're going to just paste one in here. This is one's going to be called rank because I want to find the rank of each value. So what this actual calculation is doing is, it's going to basically rank all of the different rows ordered by the value. So in a descending form. So once I actually do this and I commit it, you can see that the rank now has appeared. And if I, it's like order by the rank, you'll see that it's actually ordered from highest value item to the lowest value item. Really simple and really nice that you can, it's like do this without using like the rank X function or anything like that, because the table that you're ranking against already exists inside of your data. You can also see that this measure is not referencing any columns. It's not referencing the UK region at all. And that's the reason why if I wanted to put in, it's like country, for example, it can do that instantaneously, because the row function right here, this keyword, is essentially taking values row by row, not considering the column, which is, incredible and can really, really speed up your work. But let's keep going. Rank is the first thing that you're going to need. And the next thing that we're going to make is we're going to make the grand total. So the grand total is going to be something pretty straightforward. So the grand total of each value is going to take the actual value and divide that by the total value. This is, it's like really, really easy to make. So let's say this is just called grand total. That calculation is going to be this. We're going to divide the value, so every single row value, by this, which is the collapse all value rows. This little feature here is essentially just going to give us the total value, and it works, it's like pretty well. So if I do this, you can see that, okay, for now, it's not showing any values because grand total here is only showing 0. But if we see at the actual, it's like table below, this is basically giving us the output, and you can actually see that this is all percentages. Because it's all percentages, it's not actually showing us any, it's like values if grand total, the display units is only set to 0. So I can actually do this and just format it very quickly. Format this as a percent. Well, there it is. Yeah, as a percent, for example. And then we should see all of the percentages, which is, it's like very neat, very easy, it's like way to actually get this grand total percentage. With this grand total percentage, we'll also, after the grand total percentage, we'll also try making the cumulative value. And this is where it starts getting a little bit interesting. Okay, we're going to create a calculation that's going to be called the cumulative value. What that is going to be is inside of the Pareto analysis, what you're trying to do is figure out how many, it's like of your category do you need to hit 80%. So you can see like we have the grand totals here and we have the values here, but to see how many of, it's like how many actual top categories you need to hit that 80%, you're going to need the cumulative value. So this, etc. So the cumulative value is calculated like this. You're basically going to take the sum x of the window function. The window function is, it's like, let me just write this out like this. And this is basically what we're going to try to use. Sum x of the window function by the value is what we're going to do. And the window function is actually really simple to think about. It starts at 0.0 at the first row with the absolute first row. And then it ends at the 0 row relative to where you are. So if you're on like Southwest, it's going to start at London and go all the way down to Southwest. That's basically what it's supposed to be. So it sums, all of these things up. It's going to sum each row together, and it's and these rows are being ordered by the value like this. And then if we do this, then we should get. Okay, it's a little bit difficult to see right here. Yeah, okay, there we go. The cumulative value, which you can see here, is the value, and then the next row is the value plus the sum of the, it's like the two values, and then on the third row, it's the sum of the, it's like three values, etc., etc. And this works really nicely. And the main thing to think about here is that we're just basically doing the sum x of this window that we're creating. So we're just summing each value of that row. Works really nicely. And because of the fact that even though we're using sum x, the window that we're looking at is literally just these boxes, it's extremely performant. It'll be way more performant than using sum x in any other situation. Basic. Okay, so now we have the cumulative value. We're going to get the cumulative value percentage. That's going to be basically the same thing here. And we could do it in a specific way where let's say, it's like we have this, right? One way that we could do it is we could do it like this, where we have cumulative value percent. And instead of calling the value function, we could call the grand total function. And this would not work. The main reason that it's not working is because the grand total function is already formatted as a percent. Now, because it's formatted as a percent, that means that it's become a text value. So if we removed this and made it into something like this, you can see that the cumulative, it's like value actually does work as a percentage, but now it's not formatted, and now we've lost the formatting of the grand total. So it may not be, it's like the best thing to do it like this. One gripe that I have about visual calculations is that Control Z does not work as of yet. So I'm going to put percentage back manually. And then once we have the percent, then we see that the cumulative value no longer works again. And that's because, of course, we can't use grand total. Another way to do this instead, maybe like a simpler way to do it, would be to do something like this, where instead of creating a sum x, we can divide the cumulative value by the total value. So the cumulative value, we're just going to call that cumulative value there. And in this way, what we've done is basically instead of focusing on summing up the grand total, we're just taking this specific value and dividing it by the total value. And this is actually even better, in my opinion, simply because of the fact that the calculation is simpler. We're just dividing the cumulative value by the total. So it's doing a very, very simple, it's like calculation at each row, making it even faster. And then I guess one of the last things that you'd actually want to do is think about formatting, right? So now cumulative value, even though it works really nicely like this, maybe what you'd like to do is just format it into a percentage. And oh, pardon me, I think I misspelled something here. And this looks really great, but we're going to do a couple of things, and it's like that's actually going to require me to revert something back. So I'm going to just remove this for now. And one thing that you can do very, very easily is you see this I button on, it's like your build panel. You can actually click on this to hide a column from the visual. That means that the calculation will happen and, can be used in other calculations, but you don't necessarily have to show it, which I think is a really nice feature because it allows you to do really cool things like this. So we could say value bar is just the value. So if I do something like this, then we have a value bar. You can't see it because this is being a bit small. That's fine, right? But the value bar you actually can't see because I've already conditionally formatted this, and not conditionally formatted. I've actually, it's like changed the text around a little bit. So forgive me for that. So here, value bar, specific column value bar. You can see that the text color is just being kind of grayed out, but if we made it black, you can see that it's still there, right? But the value bar is really interesting because what you can do with it is you can right click on here. Okay, now I'm gonna have to move my head. Pardon me. Okay, now I'm gonna have to move my head just a little bit so that you can see what I'm clicking on. If I go to conditional formatting on the value bar, let's click that again. Right click on the value bar, conditional formatting, and we do data bars, for example. Now, what you could do here is you can click on apply to values only, show bar only, make that a nice, it's a yellow color to match with our theme, hit OK. And this is essentially a bar chart that, it's like shows for our data. Pretty nice. We can put that at the very front next to rank. And that works really okay. But one of the things that you have to think about is that this does not show the Pareto analysis. This doesn't change color based around, it's like if you're in the top 80% or not. And I don't think it's possible to actually do that with our, it's like color. I mean, it is possible maybe that you add a specific middle color, but this is like a gradient. It's like, and maybe you could set rules here instead, and that might be able to change the, it's like color. But what are we going to set it to? So let's go here to our cumulative value percentage. And that is essentially what we're going to be using. Right now, what we want to see is the values that are under 0.8 to be, it's like yellow, and the one that is above 0.8 to be grayed out. So let's go to the value bar. We'll go to conditional formatting, data bars again. We'll go into data bars. Because we're looking at data bars here, we aren't actually able to change the color based on this, right? Like what you saw just now before was when I looked at the data value bar. If I conditionally format it to background color or something like this, then I would be able to change it based on, it's like rules or field value, but this is just the background color and not necessarily the value bar. So that being the case, it's like a really reasonable way to do it would be to go into your rank and, it's like, for example, color your rank instead. So we can conditionally format your rank to show rules, for example. What is it going to be based on? You can actually see that we can reference the visual calculations in the conditional formatting. So let's go to cumulative value percentage. And if it's less or than 0.8 as a number, then make it yellow. Otherwise, if it's smaller than that, make it gray. Will that work for us? Yes. So now you can see that if it's under the 80 percentage, then it shows that this is indeed within that specific, it's like section. Otherwise, it is grayed out. All right, getting back to it. Okay, just gonna move myself a little bit. One other way that you can do this is instead of having a value bar, which is just using the conditional formatting inside of Power BI, you can actually choose to do something slightly different. So we're going to make we're going to call this data bar. And this is actually something that is using, it's like Bas from How to Power BI's, it's like really excellent video about how to create a target loading effect of in the new card visual in Power BI. So I will, it's like link this and definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. It's pretty awesome. But if you actually use, it's like this function right here, basically what it's doing is it's going to take the value. So, it's like the actual value of the, it's like each region, and it's going to divide it by the first value. So the top value right here, like the maximum value. And that's going to allow us to create something like this. Okay, one sec. I just need to modify just a tiny bit. There we go. Now we have a data bar, and this data bar, let's put it right next to the value bar so you can see them side by side. And hang on, still needs to be ordered by the rank. Right now it doesn't look so great, but that's because the formatting is a little bit out of whack. We're going to the specific column data bar. Make sure that the alignment is left aligned. And this looks pretty okay. It's not the actual value bar, but one thing that you can do with this is that because this is essentially dots that represent the value bar, let's get rid of the value bar so that we have a space. What we can do with this is do something like this, where we go to the data bar, go to font color, and we can conditionally format this using rules. So the rules that we're going to use is the same as what we did before, the cumulative value percent. We're going to use the 0.8. You can actually see I'm using the number. It's actually because I ran into, it's like some errors when I was using the percentage, but this works just fine. So no worries. Put that into a number, make that maximum gray. And if we do that, then you can see that the data bars, which are aligned with the Pareto analysis, can be formatted. And it's also like, it's kind of nice because you can do it in this way where you have, it's like different bars that represent how much of the percent or how much of the value it actually is. And this may be, it's like something that you want to just fiddle around with. Maybe you want to use slightly different icons to actually do it. Because what's actually happening here in this data bar is that we have an icon fill. This is just a, it's like a line essentially, or like an icon. And you could replace this with literally anything. You could replace this with a pipe, and that could create a data bar. You could replace this with a triangle. It would be completely fine to do. I could say that you could even go around and if you think that this is a little bit too, it's like small, we could even multiply that value by 2 or something to increase the, it's like actual length. And let's just take it to a reasonable level. Let's take it to like 5 or something. And then we can, here, we're going to be able to change that to this. And then this is actually just a line chart, or maybe, it's like a, not exactly a line chart, but pretty close in terms of being able to show what the data bar is. Maybe you want to make the actual colors a little bit more poignant, so that's easier to see, and that would be completely fine. So if you go actually back to the report for now, you can actually kind of see now we have, maybe it's a little bit too big and maybe you don't want it to show the totals. That's fine. We could, it's like fix a lot of that later, but yeah, works really nicely. I dislike the fact that Yorkshire and Hummer and the Humber are very long. Never mind. But it's like, nevertheless, this works really nicely. And it also still holds true that if you change the, it's like rows, you'll be able to see, it's like the values here. But you kind of have to be a little bit more careful. The data bars, naturally kind of like progress, and it's like keep the maximum width, whereas doing something like this might be a little bit more problematic in terms of just the fact that the data bar lengths might be very small. So you can see that this is like 14%, and it actually does look like it might be 14% of the actual bar size, and that is just because it is a text value and it's a little bit difficult to control in this way. So this is an option, but the it's like value method might just be a little bit simpler. It's like using the value bar instead of doing something like this. Other options that you could have is that you could even just go into, it's like here, say we've got this is what it's like Bass was using, and that's what we had before, but we could even do something like this. So put it there, and this looks like it's like relatively it's like nice and easy to see, but the lower it's like bars we're just not seeing as well, which could be any number of reasons. I gotta check that out. Showing it's multiplying by 5 here. Yeah, that's probably why, because it's just showing whole numbers. And because at this point, probably it goes from, it's like 0.5 to slightly less, and it just doesn't show the value. So these are, it's like things that are important to think about in terms of, it's like, can you actually use this? Should you use this? I think if you multiply the 5 here, then you'll see like a couple more instead of there. But it is just like, it starts, it's like etching out because the percentages are just much, much smaller. So you want to be very careful about how to use this more than anything else. Okay, so I think that's essentially it. This is the entire, it's like process by which you can, it's like make something like this. I think the cumulative value is conditionally formatted in a just just in a wrong way. I got to get rid of that conditional formatting. And I think that's just because I copied the format of my previous table, and it is bringing in all kinds of stuff here. So I hope that you learned some, it's like really cool tricks here. I hope you understand that this is a really revolutionary feature in terms of what we can do with Power BI, specifically because we will be able to create something like this and reuse this visual in multiple places. You could basically take this, it's like visual, copy and paste it to somewhere else, replace the columns and replace the measures, and you would have the Pareto analysis basically at your fingertips in a couple of moments. This is something that's really, really aligned to an article that Kurt Bueller, it's like posted from on his SQL BI, it's like collaboration, where he's basically talking about reusing different, it's like visuals and different things in your report development, some kind of atomic design where basically you build a smaller piece and you can reuse that smaller piece in different visualizations. So thanks for watching. I really hope you learned something, and now you have a, as much of an appreciation for visual calculations as I do. And I'll see you next time. Take care.